This is Caribbean News Desk. I'm Dennis Chabrol. First, the headlines. Caricom moves to revive talks with Canada on the Trade and Development Pact. Jamaican cane farmers told not to abuse loans. Guyana's opposition leader wants the ruling party in a power-sharing arrangement, but suspected criminals must stay out. Anguilla reopens iconic hotel. The British Virgin Islands is expanding its port, and Venezuela plans to keep oil production at 3 million barrels per day. Details coming up.
We are one Caribbean, one people, one nation. It's in the same destiny. So separated we are as one. Let's come together. One market economy. Caribbean is how it should be. Let's support Caricom for Caribbean unity. It takes you. It takes me from Caribbean unity.
Caribbean trade ministers have agreed to set up a committee to examine ways of closing the gaps in a proposed trade agreement with Canada and so revive negotiations. Canada had set a June 30 deadline, but Caricom has yet to reach consensus on the proposed agreement. Sources said Caricom's Ministerial Council for Trade and Economic Development agreed that political representatives from Guyana, Belize, Haiti, Jamaica, and the Sub-Regional Organization for Eastern Caribbean States would meet to discuss outstanding issues for the trade accord. Guyana's Minister of Foreign Affairs Carolyn Rodrigues-Birkett tells Caribbean News Desk that the region would not return to the negotiating table with Canada unless concerns by a number of member states are addressed.
We still have different countries have different issues, and so all of those have not yet been dealt with. So we're not yet. Let me say this: we're not yet right now in a position to go back to Canada, but we're hoping that we'll be able to do that very soon.
Meanwhile, Caricom Secretary General Ambassador Erwin Larocque told at the opening of the Trade and Ministerial meeting in Guyana that the regional headquarters has crafted a number of proposals.
Negotiations for Caricom Canada Trade and Development Agreement. It proved impossible to conclude these negotiations by the agreed deadline of the 30th of June 2014. In an effort to move the process forward, a package of proposals has been developed under my direction for consideration by heads of government. If accepted, it will be submitted to Canada with an aim of securing the return to the negotiating table. The package of proposal has been submitted to the Pro-Tem, and I look forward to your positive response.
Canada and Caricom began negotiations dating back to 2001 for a trade and development agreement that is compatible with World Trade Organization rules. The new trade accord will replace the Caribbean-Canada Trade Agreement, CARIB-CAN. The Jamaican government on Friday warned that attempts by some sugar growers to manipulate the system of loans established to boost output could jeopardize the entire program. Executive Director of the Sugar Industry Authority, SIA, Derek Heaven, said in a statement that some farmers have been very creative, taking out loans under one name and selling their crops under another name. The SIA administers the Cane Expansion Fund, a Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries venture intended to increase sugarcane production. The fund accepts projected future harvests as collateral for loans to growers. Historically, Jamaica has been a major sugarcane producer, but the island is increasingly an importer of the sweetener. Sugar production in Jamaica for 2004 to 2005 was 125,400 tons, the lowest in 6 decades. Guyana's opposition leader David Granger says he is still in favor of power sharing, although he will advocate the prosecution of certain persons from the incumbent party. Granger, as a Partnership for National Unity, hopes to win the plurality or majority of the votes in general elections expected in some quarters to be held during next January. Already, President Donald Ramotar has said that if the combined opposition next Monday decides to forge ahead with a no-confidence motion in his administration, he'll be either suspending Parliament or dissolving that lawmaking body and calling fresh general elections. The opposition leader says that while he wants to see certain persons locked up for alleged crimes they have committed while the PPP has been in office, the door is still open to the People's Progressive Party to share power. But why does Mr. Gracia think that the PPP will be part of his administration if he wants certain persons locked up?
There's no prospect of sitting around the table with criminals. Right? If people have done wrong, I will not intrude or interfere with the course of the law. But we can invite persons, we can invite parties, people with clean hands to come into the administration. If somebody has committed murder, I don't see that they have an obligation to bring him into government. So it's not a matter of bringing in criminals. It's a matter of bringing in people who are interested in building Guyana. I'm not sure that we're on the same page here.
There have been widespread allegations of corruption and misrule by the incumbent administration. The iconic Marijuana Hotel and Spa has reopened in Anguilla after 3 years and is expected to revitalize the economy of that Caribbean island. The hotel, whose name refers to the Amerindian name for the island, opened in 1984 and was the economic engine of Anguilla over the next 2 decades. But the owners closed the establishment in 2011 with the intention of selling. In February 2013, the hotel was bought by U.S. firm Adventurous Journeys Capital Partners, owners of the Isle de France Hotel in St. Bart's. The new owners entrusted management of the hotel to Auberge Resorts, who reopened the Marijuana on November 1 after $80 million in renovations. Anguilla is a British overseas territory located in the northeastern Caribbean, and its economy depends mainly on luxury tourism, fishing, and offshore banking. The British Virgin Islands says the first phase of the expansion of the Road Town port on the main island of Tortola will be complete by January. The Finance Ministry says construction of the Tortola Pier Park will boost the tourism industry and the local products and services when new customers arrive in the city. The first phase of the complex, featuring restaurants, shops, and other businesses, will be complete in January, and the plans call for opening a segment to the public next April. According to Idea Orlando, the design and planning firm working on the project. In January 2014, the Ports Authority signed an agreement with Disney and the Norwegian Cruise Lines to coordinate the arrival of larger ships to the area. It is expected that about 425,000 passengers will visit Tortola during the 2015-2016 cruise season. Venezuela's state-owned oil giant PDVSA says it plans to maintain oil production at approximately 3 million barrels per day in 2015, more than 2.5 million barrels per day of which is to be exported. PDVSA President Eulogio Del Pino said during the presentation of Venezuela's budget to the National Assembly's Standing Committee on Finance and Economic Development that the company's plan in 2015 is to maintain production and develop its ability to react to any market scenario. Del Pino says crude exports will amount to 2,528,000 barrels per day, and the volume to be set aside for the domestic market is estimated at 766,000 barrels. He adds that the development of gas reserves, including projects in the northern state of Sucre that are expected to yield 8 billion cubic feet of gas per day, will help replace diesel as a feedstock for thermoelectric plants. PDVSA's decision to expand rather to keep production unchanged contradicts other announcements made in recent years that would have meant failing to meet the previously announced goal of doubling oil output by 2019. In late 2013, then PDVSA President Rafael Ramirez, currently Venezuela's foreign minister, said that the company had set a target of producing 6 million barrels per day in less than 6 years. The government has carried out different plans aimed at increasing oil production and reaching output targets of 3.5 million barrels per day in 2012, 4 million barrels per day in 2014, and 6 million barrels per day in 2019. However, production remains stuck at around 3 million barrels per day. Venezuela, the world's fifth largest crude exporter, sells around 2.5 million barrels per day to foreign markets, mainly the United States and China. Oil sales account for more than 90% of Venezuela's foreign currency earnings and half of the government's budget revenues. After falling for several weeks, the price of Venezuela's crude basket currently stands at less than $80 a barrel, its lowest level in several years. Venezuela has urged the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, to call an extraordinary meeting to discuss the drop in crude prices, but other OPEC member states such as Saudi Arabia have rejected the possibility of a gathering prior to the cartel's next scheduled meeting in late November. Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa has defended his government's plan to extract oil from the Yusini National Park in the Amazon. He says that it will affect less than 200 hectares of the nearly 1 million hectares of the natural reserve of high biodiversity. According to latest calculations, the surface that may be affected by oil extraction activities may be 0.2 per thousand, or 1 in 5,000 hectares. Correa visited the area to check on the progress of the work being done and denied that the project is going to affect 18,000 hectares as claimed by groups opposed to the plan. In a meeting with foreign journalists in the town of Coca on Thursday, Correa questioned the protesters' argument, saying that they should say where these 18,000 hectares were. He also defended the measures adopted to cause minimal environmental impact to the area. The president dismissed the criticisms of those who oppose the extraction and highlighted the environmental studies and the techniques used to protect the jaguars, giant otters, ocelots, deer, and other species that inhabit the park. Protection measures include ecological trails, underground pipes, and the steps adapted for animals by joining treetops and every other necessary environmental precaution. He added that the flare-offs of gas from oil wells, which contaminate the atmosphere with about 800,000 tons of carbon dioxide emissions every year, have been replaced by new techniques that prevent contamination and allow the reuse of the released gas. Correa also criticized the group Yasunidos, which filed a petition with the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights for the violation of political rights after the refusal of the Ecuadorian Constitutional Court to authorize a referendum on oil exploitation in the park. And finally, an Argentine judge has put on trial journalist German Sasso, the editor of a media outlet in Bahia Blanca, for not revealing his sources in case of a media entrepreneur allegedly involved in drug trafficking in the country. In several audio recordings released by Sasso's outlet La Brujula 24, media entrepreneur Juan Suarez can be heard talking to policemen and other high-ranking officials. Judge Santiago Olpiano Martinez prosecuted a journalist for concealing the sources of the recordings, in which another Argentine media entrepreneur, Leonardo Fariñas, also seems to be involved. According to the judge, such evidence cannot be produced in a court, ignoring its illegal origin. He also added that the judicial system employee who leaked the material to the press has not been identified. Last Friday, Sasso refused to testify in the case to protect his source. According to the judge, the recordings were only held by 3 entities: the Investigations Bureau for Illegal Drug Trafficking of Bahia Blanca, judicial observations of the Ministry of Intelligence, and the federal court in Bahia Blanca.
We are 15 states with a common goal, a unified purpose to face the world, enriching lives, empowering people, creating a strong economic region. No matter where you're from, no hassle, just freedom. Whether business, school, or pleasure, we will benefit together. The Caricom single market, good for you and me. The Caricom single market, good for you and me. The Caricom single market, good for you and me. Oh yeah!
And just before we go and look at our headlines again, Caricom moves to revive talks with Canada on a trade and development pact. Jamaican cane farmers told not to abuse loans. Guyana's opposition leader wants the ruling party in a power-sharing arrangement, but suspected criminals must stay out. Anguilla reopens iconic hotel. The British Virgin Islands is expanding its port, and Venezuela plans to keep oil production at 3 million barrels per day. Thank you for joining us, and do have a great weekend. I'm Dennis Chabrol. Don't forget you can visit us on our website at caribnewsdesk.com Also on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Carib Newsdesk. We are also on Twitter at twitter.com/demwaves. You can email us if you'd like to advertise on our program at caribnewsdesk@gmail.com. Have a great weekend.